There is a specific moment in the critical reception of any long running television program when the reviews stop being about the show and start being about the reviewer's relationship with the show. When the question being answered is not what is this season like, but whether the critic was ever really watching the same program the audience was watching. That moment arrived with unusual clarity on June 3rd and 4th, 2026, when the first 4 episodes of Clarkson's Farm Season 5 appeared on Amazon Prime Video and the reviews began to pour in. The audience, which had been waiting since the fireworks had spelled out a number 5 on a Cotswold hillside on Bonfire Night 2024, received the episodes with the warmth that 5 years of investment in these people and this farm had produced. The critics were more divided. The Guardian gave it 3 stars out of 5 and wrote that you might as well call him Jeremy Kardashian. RadioTimes gave it 4 stars and said it was healthier than ever. Metro gave it 2 stars and appeared to have concluded that the whole enterprise had become something it did not much like. And somewhere in the gap between Jeremy Kardashian and healthier than ever, the audience pressed play and found out what the darkest year yet actually looks like on screen. Yahoo! The Guardian's review was the most quoted and the most contested of the critical responses, not because it was the harshest, but because its central argument touched something real about what the show had become. The cult of personality charged the observation that Clarkson's Farm had evolved from a documentary about a man learning to farm into something more like a lifestyle brand with a television show attached. That the multi-million-pound beer brand and the souvenir emporium selling cufflinks and the pub with the Grand Tour marquee had transformed Diddley Squat from a farm into a destination, and that the destination had begun to consume. The documentary was not without foundation. The question the review posed was essentially the same question that the show's critics had been asking for 2 seasons. If the point of Clarkson's Farm was to show people how difficult it is to be a farmer, and Clarkson's biggest gripe was the number of pint glasses tourists were stealing from his pub, was that not a structural problem that the show could no longer resolve? The Jeremy Kardashian line was designed to sting, and it did, generating enough social media response to suggest it had connected with something that a significant number of people had been thinking without quite articulating. Yahoo Radio Times was considerably more generous, awarding 4 stars and writing that fans of Top Gear back in the day would not recognize the Jeremy Clarkson seen in season 5 fighting back tears when his favorite pigs were loaded onto the truck that only did one-way journeys, but that Clarkson's Farm was healthier than ever. The review identified what the Guardian had missed, or rather, what the Guardian had chosen to dismiss, which was the specific transformation that the show had documented across 5 years, and that season 5 had apparently brought to a new point of intensity. Clarkson, the review noted, had softened over time, and a scene in which he became breathless after rashly trying to saw down a Christmas tree unaided really did look like death was looming, a reminder of his mortality that had given the season a new farmer Clarkson, who had emerged from the experience change. The pig scene, the specific moment of Clarkson fighting back tears as animals he had raised were taken away, was the kind of scene that the show's critics had always found difficult to dismiss because it was not a performance. It was what happened when a man who had spent decades being professionally unsentimental discovered that he had, without quite noticing, become genuinely attached to the things he was looking after. Yahoo, Yahoo. The season opened as the trailer had indicated, with the health scare. The new series opened with Clarkson receiving a major health scare, subsequently undergoing a heart procedure, and being left under strict doctor's orders to take it easy. The scene had already been processed by the audience through the trailer. The hospital bed, the monitors, the explanation to Caleb about the arteries. But seeing it in context, in the first episode of a new season rather than a 2-minute preview, gave it a weight that the trailer had not fully prepared for. This was not simply a dramatic opening for a television program. It was a documentation of a real event that had genuinely changed the man at the center of the show, that had introduced into a program about the difficulty of running a farm, a new and more fundamental difficulty, the specific difficulty of running a farm while your body was telling you to slow down. In the latest series, Clarkson sought to make his farming life less stressful, with one of his solutions being easy care sheep, to which Caleb's response was immediate and unambiguous. No sheep is easy to care for. The dynamic was pure Clarkson's farm. The solution that sounded sensible, the expert warning that it wasn't, and the inevitable discovery that the expert was right. GB News, GB News, Rotten Tomatoes, aggregating the critical responses, noted that Clarkson seemed to have learned from his errors, and that the tone in the early episodes was largely soft and inoffensive, and that the show addressed the issues affecting farmers and their families while maintaining good humor and challenges, representing more than just a television program. The observation about the tone being soft and inoffensive was interesting because it cut both ways. For the show's supporters, softness was evidence of growth, of a man who had genuinely changed through the experience of farming and the experience of facing his own mortality. For its critics, softness was evidence that the show had lost something, that the specific friction that had made the early series so compelling, the genuine incompetence and the genuine bureaucratic frustration and the genuine financial precariousness, had been smoothed away by 5 years of success and a multi-million-pound empire. The Guardian's Jeremy Kardashian line was, in the end, a version of this argument, that the documentary subject had become too successful, too branded, too comfortable in his celebrity farmer identity to sustain the tension that the show required. Wikipedia. The audience, as it almost always did, disagreed with the critics. The social media response to the first 4 episodes was overwhelmingly positive. The specific warmth of people who had been waiting a long time for something they loved and had found it delivered. The pig scene was discussed at length. The specific quality of Clarkson's emotional response and what it said about how the show had changed him. The easy care sheep sequence was shared widely, with the audience response suggesting that Caleb's warning had landed exactly as the show intended. As a piece of comedy that was also a piece of genuine agricultural observation, delivered by someone who knew what he was talking about, to someone who was about to discover it the hard way. The heart scene was treated with the mixture of concern and relief that the trailer had already begun to generate. Concern about what it represented. Relief that the man who had experienced it was still there, still farming, still making television about it. Season 5 was expected to focus heavily on the economic realities facing modern farming businesses, with Clarkson pushing ahead with plans to modernize the farm using new technology, and one storyline seeing Caleb Cooper traveling abroad for the first time. The technology storyline, the driverless tractor, the Netherlands trip, the attempt to bring diddly squat into the precision agriculture era, was the season's comedy spine, running alongside the more serious threads of the health scare and the TB lockdown and the inheritance tax. The 4 episodes released on June 3rd had not yet reached all of these storylines. The batch release format meant that the full arc of the season remained unknown to anyone who had not yet watched beyond the first 4. But the critical and audience response to those 4 episodes had established something that the debates about Jeremy Kardashian and soft tones and structural flaws could not entirely obscure. That the show was still making people feel things they had not expected to feel about a man learning to be a farmer in his 60s in Oxfordshire, which had always been and remained the whole point.